All right, moving on to item H. And that one stays, right, Nicole?
Yes, that one stays. Still similar, it's still with the trash rake project. So this agenda item is two sub items within it. One is the contract amendment and the second is the task order. The amendment details in your packet, I think it's page 74, you'll see the details on that we have a current contract with the providers Murray Smith for design and oversight of the trash rake replacement projects. And the amendment request is to increase the cost limit and extend the timeline to allow these projects to continue moving forward. Should I talk about the task order 2 before we do the motion?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so the task order is within the contract. This will be similar. It's a new task for installation of the trash rake equipment at pump station 4. And the details you can see on page 75. And our staff recommendation is to execute this task order to allow the project to continue. Does anyone have any questions on the contract amendment or the new task order request?
Is there any official resolution needed, or is this just informational?
You'll need to move to approve.
Yeah.
Got it.
It's the amount, the price amount is the requirement for approval.
I can, there are, I believe, 2 separate motions and I can add them.
Yeah, you could add those. Any discussion, any questions for Nicole?
So the first one is coming through here.
Yeah.
Just very high level. So the scope changed and therefore there's timeline and cost implications.
The scope hasn't necessarily changed, as the original request for proposal did include all the pump station projects, and we were going to have oversight and design from this consultant. And I think with COVID and everything just kind of took a little longer than expected and prices went up.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's just move on to approving it then, if there's no further questions. Can I get a motion? It's in the chat. It's rather lengthy, so if you just want to read it off, that's fine.
That's Nikki. I can do
And
that.
there's 2 different motions, so.
So we're going to take up the engineering services task order for pump station number 4. So it's been pasted in the chat from both myself and Wendy. So let's go with the pump station trash rakes first.
There's the amendment and then the task order.
Are they in order?
Ah, got it. So I missed that. All right, we're coming. Here is...
Hong, I've already pasted the second one. So I just wanted to let Nikki know. So the first thing that came through is the task order, and then the second one is the oh wait.
So the amendment to the contract services is $602,000. So you can.
So that's the one that I did, and then Hong did the second one. Sorry about that. Sorry for the confusion.
Nikki, and I move to approve and authorize the executive director or the designee to sign a contract amendment to extend the term of the contract number MC-1801-184-DSA for design and construction administration services for trash rakes, to extend the term to December 31st, 2024, and increase the maximum contract value to $602,000.
And could I get a second on that? Thanks, Nikki.
This is Kenzie, I second.
And let's do a roll call, or any discussion. Hearing no discussion, let's do a roll call vote. Darian?
Aye.
Kenzie?
Aye.
Nikki?
Aye.
Ken Anderton votes aye. Motion, resolution passes unanimously. We got one more to do, right?
Mhm.
All right, could I get a resolution or a motion?
This is Darian. I'll do this one. I move that we approve and authorize the executive director or their designee to sign a task order under the contract MC 1801-184 DSA for engineering services that support and design the installation of the pump station number 4 trash rakes for a value of $251,053.
Nicely done. Can I get a second?
This is Kenzie, I'll second.
Kenzie seconds, and we'll just do, any discussion? All right, hearing no discussion, let's do roll call vote. Darian, how do you vote?
Aye.
Kenzie, how do you vote?
Aye.
Nikki,
Aye.
Ken Anderton votes aye, and motion passes unanimously. All right, and so now we're on to item I on the agenda, and Nicole, that
Yep.
one's the barge, right?
This one's the barge.
That one sounds fun, actually.
Yay. So great news. So you saw that in your packet, we did put an RFP out, a request for proposal. We received one bid that we did find responsive. And right now we are currently working with the consultant to finalize all the details of the specifications. And we plan to move forward with this purchase contract. And so today we're requesting approval for the award to allow us to negotiate the contract. And there's more details of the supplier in your packet as well. Does anyone have questions on the barge purchase?
Seems pretty straightforward.
Yep.
All right, do we have the language in the chat?
I'll let Wendy add it. I don't want to.
I don't know, I kind of was enjoying who could type faster last round.
Copy and pasting here.
One of those projects that was raised with me on day one of my employment. And so it's super exciting to see the progress. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Josh. Josh McNamee from our operations team was very helpful in making all this happen as well. So
Yes, Josh was very helpful and our consultant as well. It's great.
Nicole, looks like you've been busy.
Yeah.
It's all over the agenda, so thank you. All right, it's in the chat. Could I get a motion?
Nikki, I can make that motion. I move to approve and authorize the executive director or their designee to sign a contract for the purchase of an equipment barge with a maximum contract value of $218,000.
All right, can I get a second?
Darian, I second.
And Darian seconds. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. Let's do roll call vote. Darian?
Seems like a good deal on a barge to me. I'll vote aye.
Kenzie?
Aye.
Nikki? Ken Anderton votes aye. The motion passes unanimously.
I look forward to holding an MCDD board meeting and party on the barge. That'll be fun. No, we probably aren't going to be allowed to do that. It wouldn't be safe, but
I'd love to see that, Jim. Just one event on the barge. We haven't done a barbecue in a while. All right. Item J, the MCD appointment to the JCA board.
So with Nancy Hendrickson was MCD's designation to JCA, and with her moving on up to the urban board, MCD does not have representation on that JCA board currently. And so this is an opportunity for you to designate someone or discuss that process.
All right, and Wendy, can you just give a quick explanation of what that means, the time commitment and what that all entails?
it should be, I'll let someone else talk about the the legal technical aspect of it. I just will let you know that these JCA meetings take place during formats, so it would be a very small additional amount of time commitment on your behalf to do that. And then maybe Colin or someone else can talk about what items are coming up on that JCA agenda in the future.
Sure, I can talk about the JCA's relationship with the Levy Ready Columbia IGA board, and maybe Hong can talk about, or someone else can talk about the local contract review board. For the relationship between the Levy Ready Columbia IGA board and the Joint Contracting Authority is that the cash contributions and the budget of the Levy Ready Columbia program are housed within the Joint Contracting Authority's budget purview. And so every year in the early winter or late winter, early spring, the Levy Ready Columbia board meets and works out what their budget will be. There is a briefing, usually with the JCA's budget liaison, who currently is Karen Myers. And then from that point, it is brought to the JCA board only after it's been a recommended budget from the Levy Ready Columbia partners. And so usually the JCA will have two touches with the budget, both the recommended one, and then they'll adopt the budget in June during the format. So as Wendy noted, it is part of the format meetings. They usually will ask to make sure that it's been a recommended budget from the Levy Ready Columbia partners. So as far as the time commitment, it's usually 2 meetings that are specific around approving the Levy Ready Columbia budget. And then there's a number of contracts. A lot of the contracts that are for the levy recertification work go through the Joint Contracting Authority. It was put together back in, I think, 2014 or 2015, specifically to contract for these large contracts that go across multiple districts and really focused on being able to move forward on levy certification. There are going to be 2 contracts, possibly 3, that are for levy recertification design work that will be coming through our procurement team early in 2023. So those will be brought to the JCA. So at least for right now, non-local contract review related, there's probably 3 meetings that the JCA will come to meet on. Hong, would you be able to handle LCRB?
Yeah, no, I can add to that. Thank you. So Colin kind of gave you an overbrief, a brief of what the Joint Contracting Authority does as a budgeting, but its role in a budget, as well as contract approving authority, in the sense that they have authority to approve certain contracts that represent interest for multi-districts. It sort of is a predecessor to the Urban District Board. And it executes on the budget that the Levy Ready Columbia group approves and funds. And that group is now a subset of the Urban District Board. So you can see all the connections there. The JCA also serve as a local review, contracting review board for the drainage districts. And what that means is as such, you get to adopt rules on local contracting, be able to specify exemptions from the public contracting, state contracting laws. You don't get to approve each of the legacy districts contracts that still remain with them, but you do approve contracts that are representative of the projects for multi-districts and running through the JCA. So those are the different roles that the JCA plays, and we do try to line them up with the format just because of the multiple representations from multiple districts, and that's intentional. You would want the MCDD board member to be on this board to represent MCDD's interests alongside the other legacy districts.
Thanks for the explanation. I think since we have newer board members, that's really helpful to understand the difference in the different boards. And we throw a lot of acronyms around. So is there interest on the MCD board to take this on and replace Nancy's representation?
Well, I would say that, well, it seems like I would be an obvious potential choice. I feel a little bit like my familiarity with the relationships between all the different facets of the boards, the LCRB, JCA, I don't feel like I'm quite prepared at this point for that. Are we hamstrung here if that position's not staffed? It sounds like probably by December, so pretty soon. And then I guess at what point is it possible that internally we can decide as a board to pass that responsibility around a little bit? Is it possible I could take that on at a later time after I get my feet under me a little more?
Well, I'm happy to raise Ken's coffee to like a smoothie and have a meeting with you to lay out that relationship as I've had with other new members of the board.
I'll
So,
up hung with a sandwich.
Yeah, sandwich.
And we'll get you whole meal, Darian.
I don't want to discourage that. I just want to also say you could make this decision next month if you want to reach out to Corky and see if he's willing to do it, or you could just appoint him in his absence.
Nice idea. And the LCRB, I think, should be relatively stable because we've just updated rules fairly
Yes.
recently. So I don't think there'll be a ton of work in that space. And then the budget piece is really, it's about finding out what we can get from the partners and then adopting it. And then Colin does a good job with Nicole's help and others, making sure we spend it correctly. So it sounds more daunting than it is I guess what I'm trying to share with all of you. And it will happen in the context of one of these existing meetings you're already going to be attending. So easy for me to say, I'm not volunteering.
I'll say I'd be willing to step in. My only reluctance is I'm often unavailable during that primary budgeting season. I end up offline a lot.
Yeah, thanks, Nikki. Anybody else have interest?
I'm not thinking I'm the best person for the job right now. Just I'm anticipating some leave coming up, and so I wouldn't want to cause inconvenience there.
Okay. I kind of like the idea of appointing Corky, but it'd probably kill me if we didn't get his input. So I say let's push it off to next month, and I can breach the topic with him in terms of I think this would be an easy one for him to take on, and then Darian, maybe you could, or others could follow in his footprints after that. Sound good? All
Yeah, I
right.
appreciate that, Ken.
You're welcome. And I completely understand. It takes a bit to just one board to understand, all the different acronyms and that. So I don't want to burn you out on additional responsibilities. So.
Appreciate your thoughtfulness, Darian.
All right, so that will be on the next month's, or what did you say, December agenda? Whatever you want to put it on the agenda that Corky's there.
Meeting individually in November, we could do it in a month.
Okay, got it.
So
All right.
I'll just add, so we're a little ahead of schedule, which is probably a first. And we have some guests coming for this next piece of the presentation on the seismic resilience study. And so they'll be joining us at noon. So we could take a break. We could ask Evan to do a really short overview of PMLS real estate, but that's where we're at. We are required to have these guest presence, I believe. Is that correct, Evan?
think our executive session item might take longer than 5 minutes. So
Yeah, the part of the grant money we received from FEMA requires that we have this presentation to our board and stakeholders. So.
Okay. Well, I would say that given not a lot we can do, I don't want to rush Evan through her presentation. And I think we said we're going to push that to another date, right?
Correct.
So I'd say let's just take a few minutes break, be back here at 11:59 so we can get started right at noon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Engineering team. I'm Kevin Severson. I manage the engineering team for Multnomah County Drainage District. I'm here to present the results of a seismic evaluation that we did in partnership with FEMA. They generously gave us most of the money for a $50,000 evaluation that we did using data that we had gathered previously under the Levee Ready Columbia geotechnical investigations, and Brian Eberhardt was the original lead on this project. He has since literally moved across the country, but you know, we kept it going, and McKenna Bell and I have, with the engineering team, have finished it out. And so we ended up using the sub-consultant, our consultant on call with Cornforth Consultants, and then they worked with David Bugney, who's a structural engineer as well. So it was a geotechnical engineer and a structural engineer working with us on this, and then FEMA footing most of the bill, and we greatly appreciate that. So the why, as most of you know, regionally, for us, we're primarily concerned about the Cascadia Subduction Zone megathrust earthquake. I put in some information here about the return interval of this, mostly just so people kind of get a feel for what it means when people say, you know, they'll say, oh, it's a 500 or 600 return interval and it hasn't happened for 300 years. And that's kind of the warm blanket version of looking at it. But the other version of looking at it is, you know, half of the known events that we have in recorded history have happened in the amount of time that has elapsed already. So it would not be weird or out of character for this earthquake to happen right now. But it also wouldn't be that weird if it happened in 200 years. And so it's easy to say, you know, that, you know, it would be early for the average, but that average doesn't necessarily have any meaning for us. So, I mean, we need to be prepared for this earthquake, and there is not any reason to delay that. It could happen any day. And the truth is that most, particularly in MCDD, but, you know, the vast state of infrastructure in general is not prepared for it. The geotechnical data was very good for a preliminary analysis of the area, just because we had so much geotechnical information from the Levee Ready Columbia studies that were done for FEMA accreditation. And in 2017 and 2018, we had, you know, this cross section that was analyzed. You know, we have an idea of the depth of the soil and the soil profiles and what types of soils we're interacting with and when we're hitting bedrock. But they aren't soil samples taken directly below the pump station. We're looking at, you know, this segment here is actually where the original pump station was located. And then, you know, showing sort of where it connects to the middle slough, between the lower slough and the middle slough, near the MCDD pump station, or the MCDD opposites. But we have good soil data, but it wasn't, you know, we didn't go in there and do, you know, some of the geotechnical methods like cross-sonic logging and things where we get shear wave velocity profiles from the soil and things that are done under a geotechnical investigation. That did not happen with this because that wasn't the intent of those investigations when they were being conducted. We had decent construction records on pump station 1. The records that we're seeing here, this is a piling layout, are actually from the 1940 pump station, the one that was destroyed during the Vanport floods. And we don't have, from the Corps of Engineers, good foundation information in terms of the actual spacing, diameter, and type of pile and the depth that they were driven. So we're missing a pretty key component for a very robust seismic analysis and really getting specifics on some of the impacts of a seismic event. We just don't have that information. I think in haste, a lot of the pump station, when it was rebuilt after it was destroyed, not all of those records were kept. The foundations, we just made the assumption that they were built similar to the ones that were built in 1940, which is to say they're not all that strongly tied to the structure itself. They're timber foundations, so less than ideal, but those are the assumptions we had to operate on. In the analysis results, we had, the site response was determined from these various seismic sources, distances and stratigraphy of the soils like we looked at. And then the loads that are induced on the structure itself come from the geotechnical modeling outputs that are created. And so, the geotechnical model can say, you're going to experience this type of, this much settlement and this much distortion of the soils and things like that. But what we don't have here is that, because we don't know how the foundation would behave exactly underneath the pump station, and generally we can just assume not well. It is not tied the way that people would tie a foundation now to the actual concrete structure itself. So we have to assume the worst, and under the Cascadia subduction zone and then the relatively soft soils that we have and loosely deposited alluvial soils, that are underneath all of our structures now, assuming the worst is pretty severe. They're discussing, 3 feet of settlement and up to 20 feet of lateral spreading. For folks that, maybe don't know what I mean when I say lateral spreading, if you kind of look at this, where on it says pump station elevation 21.3, most of our pump stations are located on a slope like that because you have the intake, you want the water to come into your wells and be able to pump it out. And so our pump station is situated on a slope. And when you have that degree of severe shaking, that soil will naturally sort of level out, and it will shift toward that low area. So it is very real that our pump station could likely shift, up to 20 feet toward the slough, the middle slough of where it's located now, which would of course render it inoperable. The connections are going to be sheared to the pump station. But the structure itself is actually very good. We have good records on the structure. There was an on-site structural inspection of it, checking the connections, and the structure would likely survive, which is nice, that we don't need to do seismic retrofits of the structure itself. It's built very solidly. But, the problem is the underlying foundation is probably not going to be enough to allow the pump station to be operable after a significant seismic event. All of the mitigation options proposed in this preliminary study pretty much focus on stiffening the soils around the pump station. You have fibrocompaction, which is effectively creating gravel columns by compacting gravel columns, starting, injecting from going all the way down to the bottom and then compacting that on the way up, and then the compaction grouting, where you're just injecting grout columns themselves. And then there's a type of jet grouting where they mix it with the soil on its way out. Deep soil mixing is the same kind of concept. You're just mixing an overlapping and continuous sort of like creating a wall around the structure in the soil, if you can imagine, and containing the amount of settlement and lateral displacement that can happen. And then alternatively, they also offered deep foundations as a new, where you would basically build an entirely new piled foundation system around the pump station and then go under and tie it using beams to those new piles underneath the pump station structure itself to prevent it from settling and displacing. I would note that all of these are very expensive, and there's some cost estimates in there. But really, I would say what I would focus on is that more analysis is needed if we wanted to seriously consider one of these options. We should, you're talking about potentially doing a test pit adjacent to the pump station, figuring out exactly what is going on with the foundation. Do we have timber piles there? Probably. what is the diameter of them, how frequently are they spaced, how are they tied into the structure. Getting that type of information, while, you know, that type of investigation could cost, you know, easily $100,000 or $200,000. That information would still be how it would sharpen the pencil on one of these larger scale mitigation options to improve seismic resilience would be well worth the money. I can say, you know, the Port of Portland, when they were looking at, you know, creating a seismic resilient runway, one of the things they determined is that they didn't have to take their foundation system all the way into direct contact with bedrock. And so that is a significant cost savings. How deep you do have to go with these in order to stop the amount, you know, for whatever amount of limiting settlement and lateral spreading you're looking for, it is a significant cost the shallower you have to put these. So you really want to do a thorough investigation, really know what you're talking about before you would turn loose with a contractor on a project like this. You know, and this first quote here on the recommended actions is from the structural engineer on this project, you know, and it's just basically saying that, you know, we're likely to lose all of our vertical and lateral support, you know, and that, you know, figuring out how it's the foundation that's the problem. You know, our plan, MCDD staff, we don't have any exact decisions for the board to make today, but we're planning on incorporating costs to further analyze both this pump station and other drainage infrastructure into our emergency planning and our asset management going forward. Particularly as we're forming these new budgets for the urban flood safety and water quality district that we're all going to be merging into. And that also, you know, we need better, you know, seismic resiliency analyses across all of our infrastructure. And then we can come back and, you know, make determinations with the boards on, okay, what is the threshold, you know, what is a critical piece of infrastructure that we can't allow to fail or needs to be operable within so many number of days after a seismic event, you know, like what has to be mitigated versus what is, you know, easier to just replace and it won't be a significant issue during, you know, post-seismic recovery. And that is my presentation. Do we have any questions?
No, great job. We've learned a lot about seismic, you know, issues at the port in regards to the seismic runway, and also now more recently our Terminal 2 redevelopment efforts. So we're doing deep soil mixing as a solution there. But really interesting presentation, and thanks, Kevin. Any other questions?
There's a recommended action is comprehensive seismic resiliency analysis. Is that going to happen? I guess what's the next step? You know, we wouldn't want to.
I think we're going to try to figure out some costs for what those resiliency analyses would cost and incorporate those, you know, sort of into the above bullet item, and just figure out, you know, sort of what is the investigation and planning phase of what we'd like to do seismically with our infrastructure. You know, and I think it's, you know, probably an additional discussion of, we know in some of our infrastructure, such as Pump Station 1, where it will almost certainly have an unacceptable level of settlement and, you know, post-seismic, I don't know, dependability. So we'll have to do something for that. But, you know, these mitigations options are very, very expensive. And, you know, we can't arbitrarily just assign those dollars. So I would think that we would have a pretty robust planning phase that would then come into you know, specific about which one of these mitigations do we actually want to perform. But I do think the answer is, you know, particularly Pump Station 1, maybe above all of our other infrastructure, would be one of the first ones that we would actually pay for a mitigation as proposed in this preliminary analysis. Looks like we had some questions also from.
Looks like Alex has her hand up.
Hi there. Hi, Alex Howard, Port of Portland. I've worked on the resiliency program at the port, and I would agree with a lot of your assessments here that it is extremely powerful to do further resilience analyses to figure out which system you'd like to use for the runway. Our on-site analyses really helped reduce, it's still very expensive, the cost of the runway project. And then another thing that we also did, which I've found quite helpful in talking about the benefits of the project, is an analysis we did with the National Institute of Building Sciences to look at the benefits of doing the work. So what are all the losses we're avoiding? And so that is another powerful piece that goes with the on-site analysis that helps you make the best solution for the price on your site, but also provides you with a good way to talk about the benefits of doing the work. So looking at, like you were talking about, what are the consequences of not fixing pump station 1? So those are just some of the things. I'm happy to share some of our analyses with you if you want to talk a little bit more, but plenty there. Really good work. Thank you.
We'd love to get your input on that sometime, and probably even invite you for a presentation on your resiliency analysis sometime if you'd be willing to give one to staff.
Definitely.
Probably won't work for us to put our pump station on your runway, will it? That's too bad.
Probably not, but like these things are intertwined, right? And so the performance is related and very important to us. So definitely like to stay involved and connected on this work.
I have a quick question, Kevin. This is Darian. About your last bullet there and the mention of the further analysis system-wide for seismic resiliency. Is the approach to pump station 1 here at the beginning because that's sort of the highest value asset and the most vulnerable, or is that where the greatest amount of public safety benefit can be realized in terms of a loss of that in an event like this? Or, I'm wondering how does that shake up to the top in terms of seismic resiliency in other parts of the system?
Conveniently, it's both for us. I would say pump station 1, post seismic is, it is the pump station that keeps the airport dry. And it's also, the one that keeps the National Guard bases dry as well. And from the recent PMLS analyses of our system, we know that keeping that particular segment of our levee system, and keeping that maintained is, during flooding is one of the most high value things that we can do. So there's a lot of reasons why we ended up picking pump station 1, but it was primarily around, keeping the airport operational, post Cascadia. We don't know, the likelihood of a significant flood and an earthquake at the same time is very unlikely, and it's usually not considered together. But it is not impossible when you're talking about the amount of damage that can occur that maybe you're offline with your pump station for 3 to 5 years while you're trying to figure out how to recover from that. And so it just sort of naturally, we did have a much larger plan that I was working on with Brian Eberhardt before he left that we were hoping to do, and then there was just sort of a limited available funds both within MCDD and also what was available to get from grants from FEMA. And I just, again, a big thank you to FEMA, because we wouldn't have even gotten this level of analysis yet, I think, from MCDD had it not been for the availability of those FEMA grants.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Really good presentation.
Thank you.
All right, with no more questions, we'll close this one out, and we are going to skip item L on the agenda and then go into executive session. Anything else, Wendy, that before that?
Thank you, Ken. No, I just put the executive session language in the chat and just say it's it wasn't clear to me whether the board's planning on coming out of executive session and taking any action, but that should be announced ahead of time if you plan on doing that.
All right, I believe there'll be action coming out of that, but it largely depends on this discussion because I think we got to get board members up to speed. So I'm just going to read this off. The Board of Multnomah County Drainage District will convene an executive session to discuss legal advice and attorney-client communication under ORS 40.225, ORS 192.3559A, and 192.6602F. All right, we're in executive session and we can turn the recording off.
Yeah, I'll just say before we go, so I can send appropriate staff to a breakout room, or we can ask unnecessary staff and visitors to drop off the call.
Yes, that would be appreciated.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. So Colin and Evan, Armand, I think you guys are pretty key. I don't see Lori, so I think having a finance team member makes some sense too.
And we have Jamie Damon on the call.
Yeah, I think those guys can sign off since we're in executive session, please. No offense intended.
I can.
Probably Valerie, Nicole, too, or can go do other productive endeavors.
Jim, do you want me to reach out to Lori? See if she's
I'm
available?
comfortable if you're here, Ben. I think that's fine. That way you'll have awareness and you can report back to her.
Sure.
Thank
And
you.
I'm
for
sorry I
asking.
missed whether on how it should be here or not.
I think that's it's really I guess my preference on how would be for you to drop off and we'll connect back with any fiscal needs. And Nicole, I think probably you too, unfortunately. Sorry to be selective. We are working hard to improve the staff.
Recording started. We're re-adjourning after executive session. We're here to vote on an issue of issuing a formal obstruction notice in regards to a Multnomah County Drainage District owned levee system, potential damage caused by it. And I believe we need a resolution, so I'm going to look to my board members. Do we need a resolution, Hawk?
Just the motion to direct the executive director there.
Just a motion to direct the executive director. So if one of my board members could make a motion, that'd be great.
That language is in the chat if you think you want.
Nikki, direct the executive director to issue a formal obstruction notice to all relevant landowners and stakeholders along with an explanation letter.
This is Kenzie, I second.
All right, we'll do a roll call vote, but any further discussion on this issue? All right, I want to, before I make this vote, I want to declare my conflict because it's in regards to Port of Portland, who is my employer. And I'm only going to vote because we need quorum, I believe. And so let's do roll call vote. Nikki Schultz.
Aye.
Kenzie Berry.
Aye.
Darian Santer.
Also with a statement of potential conflict if the city of Portland is a party in this situation, but I vote aye.
And Ken Anderson, as I mentioned, potential future votes, I will probably recuse myself from this, but just this is given out notice. And so I vote aye in wearing the MCD president's hat and responsibilities and oath I've taken. All right, the motion passes and you can work on those notices.
Okay.
Would you guys like to, or any subset, or Ken, do you want to review the language before it's distributed, or is there any additional direction you want to provide? I want to assure you that I'm going to do my best to use this as an opportunity to improve relationships with these partners, and do my best to not inadvertently antagonize or cause trouble, but also try and make sure we have the resources we need to keep our levees in appropriate shape.
I would ask that my fellow board members that aren't conflicted on this issue review it. That would be Nikki, Kenzie, Corky,
Okay.
and not involve me in that.
That sounds like a good suggestion.
I'll be happy to review as long as it doesn't delay getting that notice out.
We'll provide a time frame for you. How about that?
Yeah.
I would enjoy the review. Thank you. I think it will benefit staff if you guys get a look at it.
All right, that is, I believe, the final item on the agenda. Any other comments from the board? All right, with that, we're going to adjourn. We thank you very much for going over in time. We appreciate it, and really important work we're doing. And just wanted to tell you, I appreciate all your time. That I know this isn't get a lot of things going on, so thank you. With that, MCD is adjourned.
Thank you all. Darian, pretty big first meeting. Way to go.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.